All right, welcome back. We're going to be solving special cases, proportions, and literal equations. The literal equations are really where it is the most important. I'm going to give you guys a little quiz on this, so make sure you guys stick around for that important part. Okay, so we're back to this page. We just finished this. I did this big long problem. And now we're going back to special cases. So to solve those, you just basically do the same thing. 1 plus 3c equals 5. I'm multiplying. 5 times 1 is 5, minus 5c plus 8c. And I'm going to say 1 plus 3c equals 5. I'm going to combine these like terms. 3c. And then I'm going to subtract 3c from both sides. And I'm getting 1 equals 5. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, and I get 0 equals 4. This is not true. There's no variables. Since it is no variables, not true, then this is going to be no solution. No matter what number you plug in there, it will not matter. It will not be a valid equation. What about this? We've got 40 minus 8x equals negative 8x plus 40. So I'm going to add 8x to both sides. And look at that. My variable has gone away. So now I'm saying, okay, no variables, everything worked out. 0 does equal 0. This is true. No variables. So that must mean infinite solutions. Infinite solutions. I know sometimes I have to sound it out in my head. All right? So there you go on that. Proportions. When you have, this is very important that you be able to understand this, because what happens is you guys learn this stuff, but then you kind of look similar to something else, and it doesn't always apply. When you have proportions, that is a fraction equal to a fraction. That's it, okay? A fraction equal to a fraction. So I've got a fraction. In this situation where you have a fraction equal to a fraction, you can cross multiply. Don't try and do that anytime you see a fraction. If I had 1/2 plus x equals 3/4, you cannot cross multiply there. That's not a fraction equal to a fraction. That's a fraction and a number. This is not in a fraction form, so don't cross multiply that. But here you can. So when you cross multiply, I'm going to multiply 5 times x plus 4 equals, and then I'm going to multiply these two. 2 times 3. Here I get to distribute. 5x plus 20 equals 6. And then I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides and get negative 14. X equals negative 14 over 5. All right, and we're not afraid of fractions. We like them. Here, what about this mess? Is this a fraction? Yes. It's a numerator and a denominator. That is a fraction. Numerator and a denominator. That is a fraction. There's no plus a constant. So I can go ahead and cross multiply those fractions. So I get 10 times 2x minus 8. Notice that I'm using my parentheses because you need to make sure that you are distributing that constant out. All right? You need to make sure you're multiplying correctly. So I get 20x minus 80 equals 40x minus 72. So I'm going to subtract 20x from both sides. Could you have subtracted 40x from both sides? Absolutely. that would have given you the same answer. It's a matter of preference. I'm going to add 72. And I'm going to get, oof, do I need a paper? I'm going to get negative 8 equals 20x. Now I'm going to divide by 20. And I'm going to be left with x equals, how do I reduce this fraction? Well, 4 goes into 8 2 times, so that's going to be negative 2. 4 goes into 20 5 times. Oops, 5. And there you go. All right, that is working those out. It's a lot of fractions, but it's important that you feel comfortable with the fractions. Now, literal equations is where they're, if you notice, the numbers are really not the important part. You can solve equations. This is solving equations. And so we're going to use the exact same steps that we did before, except for we may not get a number. So if you notice here, we're going to solve this for pi. And if you look, you're thinking, how in the world do I do that? But if you notice, c equals 2 pi r. What is happening between the 2 and the pi and the r? They're just mushed up nice and close together, which means they are being multiplied. Well, we know with our inverse operations that whenever we have something that we are solving for, we're solving for this pi, we have to undo what's happening to it. So in order to undo this multiplication, we're going to divide. And we're going to divide by 2, and we're going to divide by r. And I'm going to divide both sides by 2 and r. And when I get that over here on this side of the equal signs, 2 divided by 2 is 1. R divided by r is 1. And I'm left with pi. Everything else has simplified into 1. So pi is on this side. What about this side? Well, this is c to r. What am I supposed to do with that? And the answer is nothing. You just leave it that way. There's nothing you can do with that. You just leave it just like that. And that is your answer. Okay? C over 2r is the same as pi. These equal each other. All right. How about this next one? Let's do 16. I'm going to do 17. What about 17? It's saying solve for b. So here is b right here. I need to undo what is happening to b. Well, if we were to have 2 plus b divided by 3 equals 10, do you see how these are exactly the same? What would be the first step that I would do? I would multiply by 3. Multiply both sides by 3 and I would get 2 plus b equals 30. Well, let's do the same thing here. I'm going to multiply both sides by the denominator, which is c. I'm going to get, these are going to cancel out, and I'm going to be left with a plus b equals 5c. These are the same. Are you with me? Do you see how that's similar? Then, what is the next step? Well, I'm solving for b right here. I want to get this b by itself. Well, if I'm solving for b over here, what would I do? I'd subtract 2 from both sides and get b equals 30 minus 2 is 28. Well, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to subtract a from both sides. That's going to create a 0 pair. I'm going to be left with b equals. Now, I cannot combine these terms, so I just put them right next to each other, just like this. And there you go. That is your answer. B is the same as, or B is equal to 5c minus a. Okay? And you might be thinking, goodness, Mrs. Lavelle, do we really need to know this? And the answer is yes. And the reason is because, I'm going to see if I can fit this on here. And the reason is because you will use this next year in chemistry. If you are not using it already in biology, you'll be using it again, and you will be using it in chemistry. All right, so what about this one? I'm solving for P here. What's happening to P? It's being multiplied by A, and it's being multiplied by 1/2. So if I have a fraction here, what could I do? Well, I could multiply both sides by 2, right? Multiply both sides by 2. That would get rid of my 1/2. I'd be left with 2A equals AP, because the 2 and the 2 cancel each other out. I'm trying to get rid of the P by itself. A and P are being multiplied, so what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. These cancel each other out, and I'm left with 2A over A equals P. All right. See if you can maybe do 18, 19, and 20. I will pop back in, but I do want you to at least try. Think about how you would solve for X. I want to get that by itself. I'm going to add 3Y. 3X equals 24 plus 3Y. Now I'm just going to divide by 3. Notice I'm doing the exact same thing as I would be doing if these were numbers. The only difference is that I'm just using letters. That's why they're called literal equations. All right? And this last one, see if you can stop the video and work on this one until you get stuck or until you solve it. We're solving for V. There's my V. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and multiply everything by 2. I'm going to multiply everything existing by 2 to get rid of this. It's called clearing the fraction. So when I multiply everything by 2, if I just do this, I would get 2 times 7W equals 2 times 1/2 W plus 2 times 1/2 V. I'm going to get 14W equals 2 times 1/2 is 1. 2 times 1/2 is 1. And now I can just subtract this W from both sides. And I'm left with 13W equals V. So V is the same as 13W. Do we care what that is? No. All we know is that if you were to exchange, if I were to have a V and you were to have 13W, they would have the same value. All right, what about this last one? Solving for N. So the first thing I'm going to do is to distribute, because this is in parentheses. These are being multiplied by 180. So I get S equals 180N. Oh, wait a minute. Hold the phone. I don't think I want to do that. Well, we could do that. Minus 360. I'm going to add 360 to both sides. This is kind of the long way, but that's okay. And I'm going to get S minus 360 equals 180N. Now I'm going to divide by 180, and I have to make sure I divide the whole thing by 180. And I'm going to have S minus 360 over 180 equals N. Okay? So hopefully you guys are getting the gist of that. And that is how you do literal equations. So there you go. We'll talk about what the homework is later.